Time now to get into some company results. Alcoholic beverage maker and marketer Distell released its first half results this morning. On the line now, I'm joined by the company MD Richard Rushton to help take a look at the numbers. Richard, just a general overview of the company numbers. Your sales up, revenue up, headline earnings per share up, operating profit also up quite significantly. So overall, it's been a good first half of the year for you.
Yeah, I think it's been a pleasing performance, particularly domestically, where we saw volumes up 6% over the period. And that was led by a very strong wine performance across all price sectors in South Africa. And then, of course, ciders continues to grow, albeit off a slightly lower, off a lower rate of growth. So, yeah, in essence, a good performance, we think.
It was also interesting to note that your operating costs also increased quite substantially by double digits.
Yeah, I think, one needs to see the rise in operating expenditure ahead of our revenue growth in context of our broader strategy. We have gone on record of saying that we are pursuing growth and diversification in Africa in particular. So we, for example, have put more than 200 sales folk into Africa in the last 12 months, into our select markets on the continent. Likewise, we are investing aggressively in new capability in our Southern African operations, particularly in revenue and margin and price management tools and techniques. And then we also in South Africa have put more than 60 new sales personnel on the ground in mainstream markets, taverns, etc. in South Africa. And we expect to continue putting more sales feet on the street in South Africa. So I think you essentially are seeing an increased rate of investment in strategic initiatives for the long-term growth of the business.
Richard, maybe if you can elaborate further on these strategic investments. You mentioned your endeavors onto the rest of the continent. Which particular markets are you already trying to beef up your presence in? We know that you're in Nigeria and a few others like Kenya, but putting these salespeople on the streets, is this a different strategy?
Yeah, I think firstly, we invested in Ghana in a joint venture with a distribution partner in the country. We ourselves invested in production infrastructure in the country, and we've obviously complemented that now with brand investment and people, particularly sales personnel. We're doing the same in Angola, which is a critical market for us, as we are in Nigeria and East Africa. So that is a reflection of the strategic investments we're making in the more important African countries for the long term.
What about the increased presence and seasonality of your business? I'm sure the past festive season and holiday period was one where you must have seen a sharp increase in volumes, no doubt.
Yeah, I think seasonality is a factor for our business, particularly in the Southern Hemisphere, and still being heavily dependent on our South African operation. We did have a good December period. We would have liked to have done better. We didn't fully supply all of the market demand, particularly to ciders, over that period, which for us was, on the one hand, disappointing, but on the other hand, kind of just another clear signal that there is further growth to be had domestically for our business. So that was pleasing.
What about the brand preferences versus the local environment versus what the other people on the rest of the continent are actually looking for? Is it your ciders business that is picking up quite sharply, or wines and other beverages?
Well, I think what was a standout performance domestically this year, as I said earlier, was our wine performance. Clearly, ciders has grown tremendously over the past decade in South Africa, and we've seen that growth mirrored across Southern Africa in particular into markets such as Mozambique, Zambia, Angola, and further afield. But wine was a standout performer for us in the 6 months, which we're really pleased about. And then for the first time in South Africa, we saw the first early signs of a bottoming out of the declines in the brandy market, and we saw growth of our premium brandies in South Africa, which again was a pleasing feature of the 6 months performance.
Thank you so much for your time today, Richard, and update on the company's results. That was Richard Rushton, who is the MD of Distell.